This is the 260-day calendar, the Tzolk'in. This is the Tun calendar, the prophetic calendar. Now, each day on the Tzolk'in, there's 260 days, like teeth of a gear. And then there's 360 teeth on this gear. This Tzolk'in calendar revolves. And it makes that one move. Every 52 revolutions of this calendar, the two teeth that started out match back up. Every 52 revolutions of this, you get back to where you started. All of the Mayan pyramids are either 5 or 9 levels for a very specific reason. They were ceremonial centers. And the ceremonies and rituals that were done there were done to help demonstrate to the populace the perceptions or the considerations of their civilization about the calendar or about creation. It was their cosmology, built in huge piles of stone. What it says is that there are 9 different levels of creation or consciousness that exist or that will exist. Starting 16.4 billion, that's billion with a B, billion years ago. And this really threw the archaeologists off. What were little brown Indians in the jungle making pots? Thinking about numbers of 16 billion. It just didn't make any sense to them. Because after all, they were so primitive. 16.4 billion years ago is when the Maya say this physical universe began. Well, that doesn't line up with astronomers, does it? Astronomers, some 45 years ago, 50 years ago, had it down. Somewhere between 10 and 20 billion years ago, the universe started. Then, as we got better telescopes, so we could see further and further out, it moved from 10 to 20 to, well, maybe 12 to 20. Then we put up Hubble, and it went to 14 billion years ago that the universe started. You know what? I'll bet you that within the next couple of years, they're going to find out that the Maya, some 2,500 years ago, had it right to begin with. The Maya, although they had the pattern, never had all the facts that we're going to be talking about. Consciousness is evolving through these different stages. And they were at a particular stage that didn't have all the information we now can display. But this cycle, all the cycles actually, are named for their product. What that cycle produced. This one is called the cellular cycle. Because way at the very end of this cycle is when life started. You notice these numbers down here at the bottom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, to each level of this consciousness, there is 7 periods of day and 6 periods of night. 7 days to each level of creation. Where have we heard this before?
The Bible.
As a matter of fact. And before the Bible was written, before it was written in Hebrew, it was actually, the stories were written in Sumerian. In fact, the whole Bible is a rewrite. It's plagiarism, with a little bit of inventive editing thrown in here and there. The Sumerians, the first people to write, some of the first things they wrote was that there were 7 days and 6 nights in each level of creation. So the Maya were not the only people to have this information. They were only the most recent, ancient civilization. They left the freshest tracks. Okay, the next cycle started 820 million years ago. Again, the Maya knew how many tunes each of these cycles were, but they didn't have all the science that we now have available. This cycle is called the mammalian. The mammalian cycle, because its product was mammals. "41 million years ago, we started the next cycle." Now remember, these things are written as numbers of tunes carved in stone 2,500 years ago or so. This 41 million years ago is an approximation of how many tunes. We started the family or familiar cycle. Now this is a huge step in consciousness. 40 million years ago is when monkeys showed up. And they developed a different kind of consciousness than had ever existed before. The consciousness of family. These 2 million years are divided by 13, 160,000 years to each day and night. So each one of these intentions lasted for 160,000 years, then it went to another intention, and that intention carried forward. And that intention were the steps of evolution. Next cycle started 2 million years ago. This was the beginning of what's called the tribal cycle. Okay, here's the next cycle started 102,000 years ago. That weight's getting lighter, isn't it? 102,000 ain't so bad. This is called the cultural cycle. Because this 102,000 years brought about our cultures. 8,000 years. Every 8,000 years, there was a change of intention. Here, in 3115 BC, that's about 5,116 years ago, we started a new cycle called the national consciousness. As an interesting coincidence, that line right there is the birth of Egypt, where King Minos married the upper and lower Nile cultures into the first nation. first idea of nation. Planetary cycle. (1755) is when it started. AD. The planetary cycle. And its time scale, all of these different individual intentions, changed every 19.7 years.